Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Oh, hello. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for today's second training as part of the Giving Tuesday Bootcamp in partnership between the Rockefeller Foundation and Cosvox. My name is Noah Barnett, and I again will be hosting our conversation today. This is our second training. Previously, we talked all about how you can really plan an effective campaign. So what are the essentials that you need to be able to participate, but also to drive success on Giving Tuesday? Today, we're going to review those briefly. And so if you have any questions in regards to last training, feel free to drop those in the chat panel because we're definitely going to get to those during the latter half of today's conversation. And so even if it was about the last training and you just have further questions about that, you can drop those into the chat panel throughout the presentation. We might not answer them right away, but we'll definitely be getting into those as much as possible towards the end of today's presentation. The majority of today, we're going to be spending talking about how you can actually promote your campaign. And so we've been helping organizations not only through trainings, but also through organizations using Cosvox's fundraising platform for probably the past 6 or so years. And so we've seen a lot of different things that work well and things that don't work well when it comes to actually promoting your campaign on Giving Tuesday. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking on that. But just as a reminder for those that weren't here previously, as part of the Rockefeller Foundation grant, as grantees of that program, you're able to actually use Cosvox's community-driven fundraising platform, which is really designed for nonprofits to help run your Giving Tuesday campaign. And so as part of that, you actually have the opportunity to receive one-on-one onboarding with our customer success lead. So the person that leads our team here at Cosvox and works with our customers day in and day out is going to personally meet one-on-one with you and your team and walk you through that process and make sure you're comfortable. And I wanted to give her a chance just to talk a little bit about that and some of the next steps revolving around that before we kind of kick off into the training portion. So Candace, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Candace, and I run customer success here at Cosvox. And so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to work with you guys who end up wanting to use Cosvox or even explore using Cosvox for Giving Tuesday. And so what I will help you do is meet one-on-one with each of you to really get a good idea of what your goals are for Giving Tuesday, and start helping you map out a plan to help you accomplish them. So we'll talk through strategies and also give you hands-on assistance with setting up that campaign as well. And so from the first step, which is just getting your campaign up and running throughout the process of fundraising, I'm happy to be your one-on-one guide. And and I would be just a resource to you as you roll out Giving Tuesday. So would love to hear from each and every one of you that wants to move forward and get something set up so we can get your first Giving Tuesday consultation started. So please feel free to reach out to us following today's webinar, and we can definitely get some time on the calendar.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Candace. Like Candace said, you can feel free to reach out to her directly. She'll be also reaching out to everyone that's part of the program, whether you had the opportunity to attend last time or not. And one of the participants today asked about the previous training. So if you weren't a part of the previous training, and you would like the recording of that, I did send that out to those that were a part of that and those that said they couldn't attend prior. But if you haven't received that recording, please feel free to chat directly to us on the chat line, and we'll make note to make sure that you get that recording and today's presentations recording right after today's training today. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop that in, and we'll make sure we reach out following today's conversation. So like I mentioned before, we're going to be talking all about how you can effectively promote your Giving Tuesday campaign. Here's just a quick rundown of kind of the roadmap as to where we're going today. We're going to just recap a little bit about a recap from last training, just so that I can touch on those briefly again, because those are important to keep in mind as we dive through the promotion side of this training today as well. So again, Giving Tuesday is a global giving movement built by individuals, families, organizations, and businesses in communities and countries around the world. Again, the mission and vision behind Giving Tuesday was to promote generosity in communities of individuals coming together to support causes that really mattered to them and they believed in. And so it wasn't designed for organizations to just sign up and participate in and raise a bunch of money. The intent had less to do had less in mind to do with the organizations and more about how can we promote this idea of generosity. And so as we talked about last time, that's really important, because as you're writing communications and you're promoting your Giving Tuesday campaign, it's good to keep in mind that this is a movement of people coming together to support the causes they believe in, rather than just an opportunity for you to raise money. And so in your communications, as you design those, you're going to want to keep that idea in mind so that you can focus more on rallying people together in community with each other so that they can support your organization. And I was talking to one of the participants or the grantees earlier today, and that was a big part of that. They have an audience that's a bigger audience, and they're trying to figure out how to communicate or what is the best kind of lever for them to use. And one of the ideas is that they have a group of people that come together through a common bond already. And so we ended up talking through, like, how do you leverage that kind of bond that brings people together, or the intent that they're volunteers or advocates, or in your case, maybe participants or donors or supporters. Why are they coming together in the first place? What are they looking for? And so as you're promoting your campaign or messaging your appeal, how can you really tap into that? So again, few stats. Last year, there was 2.5 million gifts, $300 million raised online. And so this is a huge opportunity. It's the second or third, depending on who you ask, most charitable day of the year, behind the last 2 days of the year. So it's an incredible opportunity for you to raise money, but the purpose of Giving Tuesday was never focused on how do we raise as much money as possible, but rather as the dollars raised was an expression of the generosity of individuals coming together. So good to keep in mind. Few quick review items on the essentials of Giving Tuesday. The first is that you want to make sure you set a specific goal. So if you're on this call and you're still trying to figure out what your goals are, I highly recommend you kind of spend a lot of time figuring that out, as it's important for you to know what that goal is, because that's going to influence every other aspect of your campaign. The second thing, which is your fundraising appeal, which is how are you going to package that goal in a way that it actually resonates with your audience? I like to see this as like you have a goal and you have an audience that you're going to be reaching out to. And the fundraising appeal is really that bridge that's going to connect the two. How are you going to basically engage and kind of connect with your audience before leading up to Giving Tuesday, on Giving Tuesday, and even afterwards, in a way that is going to connect them and what they're looking to do and what they're trying to accomplish to your goals. And this fundraising appeal is going to be the core of your messaging on your fundraising site that you can use. So how the messaging that you're going to put on your fundraising site, you create with CauseVox. It's also might influence how you make a video or social media posts that you might be writing, or email copy, or if there's other offline engagement opportunities that you might tap into, whether it's direct mail or even items like reaching out to partners that you have in the community. All of that is going to be built on top of the fundraising appeal. So the fundraising appeal is going to be pushed out through all those various channels that you're promoting your campaign. And this fundraising appeal really must communicate what you're trying to do, why that matters, and what the impact is if you're successful, and clearly tell someone how to take action. So if action in your case is contributing or donating, maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's attending an event, those are the types of things that this fundraising appeal is going to clearly articulate. The third essential that we talked about on last week's training was your online fundraising site. So one of the biggest things we see, the biggest mistakes we see organizations do is that they don't set up a dedicated landing page, fundraising site, donation page, whatever words you might use. They all kind of mean the same thing, but there's a dedicated place for individuals to come learn about what you're trying to accomplish on Giving Tuesday, and really to be kind of the anchor for your entire campaign. So you might be pushing messages out through social or through email. All of that's driving back to your dedicated fundraising page or fundraising site. And that's what CauseVox is really stepping in to partner on as part of the Rockefeller Foundation grant, where we're going to give you the opportunity to do that using our platform here at CauseVox, like we help hundreds of other organizations every year do on Giving Tuesday. This is just going to showcase what you're trying to accomplish and give individuals an easy way to contribute, but also to share your campaign efforts with their friends, family, and community through email, social, etc. So there's a few other extras that we talked about. These things aren't necessarily essentials, but they're just items that really help kind of boost and amplify your campaign. The first is a fundraising video. And so the fundraising video is really designed to quickly showcase what you're trying to do. Again, that fundraising appeal just through video form. This can take a lot of different you can take a lot of different approaches to accomplish this fundraising video. You may already have a video that kind of encapsulates everything that you're trying to accomplish and quickly tells people all about that. So that might be an asset you can use. Others may find it valuable to create like a floating head where someone's from your organization's just talking about what you guys are trying to accomplish on Giving Tuesday. Either way, it's just a great medium, especially in today's day and age where video is being preferred over other mediums, to quickly and concisely communicate your message and equip your supporters and those that might be contributing to your campaign with an asset that they can really push out and share with their friends, family, and community on Giving Tuesday. The second item that's really a big extra and really helpful is a matching gift. Because this is a condensed campaign in the over 24 hours on Giving Tuesday, it's helpful to kind of create other incentives. Using a matching gift is one of them to give. So you're able to create a sense of urgency while also kind of aligning with your campaign's impact. And so it's not just like urgency for the sake of having urgency, but rather saying, hey, we had someone step up, or we are working with these partners and those partners are putting together a pool that we're going to be using for a matching gift. All of that is really helpful. And there was some dialogue on the last call in regards to how you could use the funds that the Rockefeller Foundation is contributing to each of your organizations as part of this bootcamp. And again, if you have any questions about how you can use that or how that could be kind of a matching gift, or you could word that, it's very important that you reach out to the Rockefeller team, directly to Jeremy, and he can kind of help you navigate some of the languaging behind that, and kind of position that not maybe as directly of a matching gift, but something that can still help kind of boost the momentum behind your campaign. And so feel free to reach out to Jeremy at Rockefeller Foundation if you have any questions on that. But there's a lot of creative ways you can use this. I was even talking to one of the grantees earlier this year, or earlier today, about how to use matching gifts in creative ways, and not just doing it one for one, but even thinking about, hey, if we get 120 donors, that's going to unlock a gift. And so finding ways to encourage people to share the campaign is going to be the best way that you leverage any boost that you have for your campaign, matching gifts included. So how do we get this to be replicable? It's not just about an individual giving money, but how do we get them to share or to even be a part of the campaign in a bigger way? So the quick summary here is, without the basics, your campaign really will get lost in the noise. Giving Tuesday is kind of grown, and so the competition for attention on Giving Tuesday has really just increased drastically. And so even though each of you are going to be communicating with your specific audiences that support and love the work that you're doing and the cause that you're advocating for, they're still going to encounter other messages, especially when it comes to Giving Tuesday. And this really bleeds out into year end. And so what we've seen is any individual, regardless of who they are, might receive 6 to 10 solicitations in the month of December. from different organizations. So that's not accounting for duplicates, which I know the organization I worked at, we sent out anywhere from 3 to 10 solicitations to our audience in the month of December. And so it's really important that you kind of ensure that the basics are there, because it's really going to be helpful to differentiate your organization from the rest. So there's 2 parts of today's training that we're going to dig into. First is going to be best practices. And so these best practices are applicable across various channels. So they're not channel specific, but these are best practices we've seen organizations leverage to really kind of effectively communicate with their audience on Giving Tuesday, but also in other fundraising campaigns they run throughout the year. So my intent with these best practices as kind of a kickoff to today's training is really to build kind of a foundation that you can use as you promote your campaigns on Giving Tuesday and throughout the year. And so since we're talking about promotion, I wanted to resurface this quote from the last training because I think it's really important. So when we're thinking about promoting our fundraising campaigns, I feel like this really encapsulates what we're actually trying to accomplish. And that's to devise a means of making known the facts, which are your goals, what your organization does, even if that's abstract and maybe not as kind of concrete or specific as other organizations might have. But it's how do we make that, or how do we kind of devise a way to make that touch the imagination of the world? And in this case, it's not even about the world, but it's your audience. Like, who cares about the work that you're doing? Who naturally has an affinity to support the work that your organization's working on? And so defining who your world is important as well. But your audience isn't ungenerous. It's not that they don't want to give or that they wouldn't give, but just unimaginative and very busy. And so it's our job as fundraisers or as nonprofit leaders to really do this well. So the first best practice that we would encourage you guys to leverage as you kind of push through your planning process is to get personal. And what we mean by that is really a couple different things. So the first, when we say get personal, is that we see organizations that are more successful at promoting their campaigns use segmentation pretty aggressively. And for those that might not be as familiar with segmentation, what we're talking about here is how do you segment your audience? So if you have an audience of current supporters, maybe volunteers, major donors, maybe you acquire donors from an event, or you have corporate sponsors, or you've run other types of promotional aspects that you've brought in an audience. So you've created an audience. It's important to segment that to ensure that when you're communicating, whether it's through social media or email or direct mail or even phone calls, that you're communicating in a contextual way with your audience. Because you know that the current relationship that those individuals have with you in more detail, or you can get more detailed with that relationship if you segment. And so if we know that, hey, we have 18,000 people that have signed up for our email list or supported us in the past, and so we're trying to figure out a way to communicate this Giving Tuesday campaign to all 18,000, you have some sort of understanding of the context of the relationship. But if you segment that down and break that audience down even further to maybe people that have already donated this year or donated recently, or they volunteered because of a specific thing that you guys were working on, or you acquired their email addresses because they attended an event, or there was a specific opportunity or piece of research that your organization offered, and that's why that you have their attention, or they gave you some sort of permission to communicate with them. If you know what those contexts are, you can get more specific, which is really helpful as you promote your campaign. Helps you contextualize your messages and ultimately build a clear bridge between where they're currently at and where you want them to be, which is in support of your campaign. The second best practice, which we spent a lot of time talking about in the last training, is all about stories. And so stories are really what connect us. We've used stories for hundreds of years, or thousands of years, really to kind of translate value, translate things that are important to us, or meaning, or kind of shared emotional connections. And so as you think about your campaign, it's important that you package those in the form of stories so that you can distribute those. And those stories could be about the people that are directly benefiting from the work that you're doing. It could be stories about supporter or people that have given to your organization in the past and why they've done that. I know personally we use that tactic for a campaign one year, where instead of going out and saying, okay, hey, these are the families that we're impacting around the world, and showcasing the similarities rather than the differences between families in different communities, from Guatemala to Uganda to the Middle East, or to specifically in refugee camps. Instead of using that approach to storytelling, we actually flipped it and asked a simple question to our committed supporters or donors, which is why they gave to the organization. And then we actually weaved those reasons together to form a story that we shared why other people should get involved, and really just leverage kind of referrals or word of mouth to be able to do that, because all we were doing was repeating back to our other supporters that we wanted to engage in our campaign with reasons why others give. And that helps, again, build a like-minded connection that encourages other people to get involved as well. So it doesn't just have to be about the individuals that are the kind of bottom of the chain, the people at the end of the line that are fully being impacted by this, but rather thinking creatively about your stories. The other thing we see work really well is stories of one. And so how can you leverage either a collective story where you're actually combining different elements of the impact that your work does into one story that really kind of showcases and highlights that. So that really ends up being like the beacon, or kind of the symbol for your campaign. Or if there's a specific story that does stand out and really you can leverage it as a representation of the other types of impact you have, that can work really well as too. It's easier to say, hey, this family whose mom is Maria and was doing all these things, that's easier to be shared on. It's like, oh, I was reading this story about this family, and Maria's a single mom and she's helping these kids out, et cetera, rather than saying, oh, did you realize there's 272 families that are going hungry in this community? I'm actually looking to get involved and support this. You should too. The single story of one is helpful as a packaging mechanism to really help promote your campaigns more effectively. Then the third thing here is that it's designed to be shared. What we mean by this is, I was talking again about this earlier today, is that you want to make sure that any type of promotion that you're sending out is designed to be shared. And so someone's going to receive that and they're going to want to tell others. And so it's a story that I can then easily share on. So you're giving me the key message points. It's kind of like any sort of, today's election day. And so in any political speech, there's usually like 1 to 3 things that the person speaking is trying to emphasize over and over and over and over again. So if you leave the conversation and you say, I attended this or I watched this speech, this is what was talked about. Or if you watch news reports or anything like that, they're trying to kind of bombard us with just a few message points so that when we talk about it, we'll be able to use those message points. And so it's designed to be shared. In the same way, if there's some key points that you want to make sure are kind of teased out of your promotion, writing those down and making sure that those are incorporated into your promotion pieces is going to be important, because then that will be shared on to others. And again, on Giving Tuesday, it's a very short time frame, and so the more kind of referral revs, or kind of the amount of individuals that you are able to reach that then share it on to other people, is really how you're going to boost your results in such a concentrated time period. The third best practice, so we talked about being personal, telling stories, is multi-channel single message. And so this is basically just saying that, like, on Giving Tuesday, you want to make sure that you're leveraging a variety of channels, such as social media, email, offline, your website, your fundraising site. You might be doing a variety of other ways that you might typically promote your campaigns. So you want to leverage as many channels as possible, but you want to ensure that there's a single message going out through each of those channels. And so the message might be customized for that channel, but you want to make sure that it's still a single message. So if I engage with you in a variety of different ways, I'm hearing the same thing, or the messages are being repetitive. rather than me encountering new messages from your organization. The fourth one is to be human. And so this is different than the first one. So the first one was keep it personal or make it personal. Be human is really about how you speak and how you communicate. And this might be different for each organization because organizations have a voice and tone that they communicate regularly with their audience. And so I don't want to dilute that or deter you from kind of keeping consistency in how you typically communicate with your audience. However, one of the interesting parts that we've found about fundraising, but specifically on Giving Tuesday, is that speaking in a more human voice rather than kind of a corporate voice or an institutional voice or as an entity helps people or helps increase engagement with your content. And so we see this in just simple ways like open rates being higher when you send emails from an individual person rather than an organization. So if someone sent me an email from CosVox, I'm less likely to open that than if Noah sent you an email. But also when I'm reading that message, making sure that we're maintaining kind of a single person one-to-one, because even though you're sending that message out to a larger volume of people, someone that is consuming it in a room by themselves, or they're consuming it in their mind in a way that's one-to-one. So the more effectively you can communicate one-to-one when someone's reading your messages, the better. The other thing, especially about Giving Tuesday, is it's all about being together and coming together as people to express generosity. And so kind of maintaining that, the integrity of that in your communications is going to be important as well. It's also going to help you stand out in the crowd. And so I use this quote on a regular basis because I think it's super important. We even use it here at CosVox when we're writing our communication as one of the filters that we push stuff through. So David Ogilvy, founder of the advertising agency and one of the great advertisers of, kind of the past 50, 60, 70 years, talks about this idea of that when you address your readers as though they're gathered together we don't want to address our readers as though they're gathered in a stadium. When people read your copy, they're alone. Pretend you're writing each of them a letter on behalf of your client, one human being to another, second person singular. And so this is just a way that I've found as kind of a filter to say, am I doing this idea of humanizing our communications? Am I doing that well? So this is a great filter to push that through. The fifth thing and last best practice quickly is that together we. And so what we're really meaning by this is that Giving Tuesday is this idea again about people coming together to make an impact in our world for good. And so as you communicate that, you want to make sure that you're maintaining that tone to your communications. Additionally, the way that you can boost your results is by bringing people in and giving and equipping them to be a part of that. So here at CosVox, we're huge advocates of peer-to-peer fundraising, not only because we sell a product that helps you do peer-to-peer fundraising, but because we've seen that that's an effective way to fundraise successfully in today's connected economy. How we buy, how we change, or how we learn about things, how we decide what to do, whether it's a restaurant or a charity to give to, has changed, where we're relying heavily on friends, families, recommendations, or like-minded people. And so if you can equip or bring in people that support your organizations to also help promote your message, it's going to help you drive further results. So Rabu, our CEO here, talks about, supporters are hyper-connected, live inside personal feeds, discover and support causes recommended by their friends, and desire to be part of the change, not merely give to it. So as we're writing communications for Giving Tuesday, we want to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of kind of who we're engaging with and how we're inviting them to be a part of the campaign, not merely give to it. We talked about 5 best practices, and then we're going to now move into the second part of this, where we really want to get into specifics about various channels. So Giving Tuesday is primarily a digital fundraising opportunity. However, there are offline opportunities for you to promote your campaigns as well. However, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the digital opportunities and then kind of mention and discuss some offline opportunities that you have. Let's dive in. This is a slide again from the first training. And basically this is just kind of a sample promotion timeline. So today is November 6th. And so what we've seen work well is that by November 12th, or kind of starting next week, you launch your Giving Tuesday site and your giving page. That's what we spent a lot of time talking about last time. And then you begin to communicate to your audience and start setting the expectation that there is going to be a campaign or a coming together on Giving Tuesday, and kind of almost like a save the date type reminder starting next week. And then from there, sending an email of appreciation. A lot of organizations here in the US tend to overlook the opportunity Thanksgiving provides to really express generosity back to the supporters that really make your work possible. I know a lot of the participants in this program or this boot camp are funded a lot by foundations. However, there are individuals and corporations and business partners. And so using the week of Thanksgiving, especially if you're the majority of your audience of supporters is here in the US, as an opportunity to just say thank you and not ask for anything is really effective, especially leading into a campaign like Giving Tuesday and year end. And then obviously launching your campaign and promoting it out and driving results all the way through Giving Tuesday. And then even sending a follow-up on the Wednesday after Giving Tuesday, showcasing what you accomplished together, but also telling people how they can still help and they can get involved. And so your campaign doesn't need to just end on Giving Tuesday. You can use this as kind of a bridge into some year-end campaigns and year-end fundraising that you might be doing. So email marketing is the first channel we're going to touch on today. It's more powerful than you think. We see organizations on average that invest in email marketing and kind of some of the best practices we're going to talk about, see right around, I think the last statistic was right over 300% return on their investment when they use email effectively. So even though there's a lot of conversations about email being dead, it's still more powerful than you may think, especially when it comes to fundraising. So Giving Tuesday emails essentials. Each one should obviously include a greeting and personalization, a clear appeal and story, why this really matters, what's the impact, that's your fundraising appeal, a single call to action, and really reaffirm the action and need. And so we talked a lot about kind of the content side of this. So you're going to be using your fundraising appeal as the foundation to write your communications for your email marketing that you're going to be doing on or before and on Giving Tuesday. We also sent you a template after the last week's training that really kind of gave you some outlines on how you could write those emails, both leading up to Giving Tuesday, on Giving Tuesday, and after. And so again, if you weren't a part of last week's training, I'll be sure to get you those templates and documents as well so that you can use those as resources. So 4 elements of a successful promotional email. This is above and beyond just Giving Tuesday. And so this is really just kind of a breakdown of the structure of a fundraising email and some best practices around each of them. So the first one's email targeting. We spent a lot of time already talking about segmentation. But again, if you're going to send an email, the first thing you have to decide is who you're sending it to, and ensuring that the tighter the segmentation that you have, or kind of the more specific context of a group of people that you have, the better your email is going to be, because you can be more specific when you're writing it to them. The second element of an email for fundraising is the subject line. The subject line is something that I overlooked as important for such a long time. But then when I started seeing decreasing open rates and seeing all the time we invest on the copy of an email or kind of the structure of the design of the email, just to see that 85% of people, 70% of people, 60% of people weren't opening it that we were sending it to. And I was then reminded that the first thing someone sees is really just the subject line. And so if people don't get past your subject line, they're not going to open your email. And I think for a long time, I assumed people were just going to open my email. And so I spent a lot more time on the content and overlooked the value of a subject line. And so in some ways, this is kind of the process of how you can write your email as well. Who's your audience? And then deciding what the subject line is going to be prior to even writing your copy. A lot of times it's leverage, or you spend time on that at the end of the process, but I kind of encourage you to do it up front. So what is the headline, basically? If you're writing an article, or if you were just sharing quickly, like why someone should care about your communication or your message, this is what your subject line does. And so keeping it short, under 50 characters is a best practice when looking at thousands and thousands of emails. Not using capital letters, posing a question, and personalizing it with the donor's name. So depending on what email software you might be using, there's an opportunity for you as well to insert personal information, whether it's the name or the company name or the context, whatever data might be relevant. You can insert that into the subject line as well. And the last thing that I didn't include on this list is to send it from a person or a real person rather than your organization's brand. And so if that's not something you've done in the past, I'd encourage you to use GivingTuesday to try that out. And so what I mean by that is, in this case, this organization is called World Help. They're an international relief nonprofit. And so what they've done is test sending it from their emails from a real person rather than just sending it from World Help as an organization. And so in this case, they're sending it from their founder. Other individuals might send it from a development rep or some public figure that is kind of a part of your organization. But even if you don't have any of those type of people in your organization, you can still send it from your name or someone on your development or marketing team's name and see how that improves the results. Next thing is email content. And so this is, again, going back to reiterating some of the best practices for your fundraising appeal. So who and what you're helping, why the campaign is vital, and how your donor's gift really plays a role. And we break these down even further in the templates. And so I don't want to dive too much into this because we've spent a lot of time talking about it. But this is basically, hey, an email is a tool to get someone from their crowded inbox onto your dedicated fundraising site. And how are you going to do that? What is the most important information? So you don't have to share everything, but how do you get someone from their inbox to take a look at a video or to read more about the fundraising appeal or to share a story? So whatever it is, that's kind of what your content needs to focus on. And then the call to action, we always encourage people to keep a single call to action because if you have an audience and you want them to do a very specific thing, you should invite them to do that, and that's it. And so we encourage organizations to focus on a single call to action per email. So if you're writing an email to someone, making sure there's kind of a clear next step is going to be awesome, or is going to be your best bet going forward. And because it's more clear, it's more direct, and you're giving someone an easy out and saying, hey, you read this email, this is exactly what you need to do next. And so they don't have to come up with a decision or decide between different options. So giving a clear call to action. And if you have multiple call to actions, you can either diversify those based on the segment of audience that you're sending to, or you can just use separate emails to be able to communicate each of those opportunities. The next way of promotion we want to talk about is word of mouth. This is not just specific to GivingTuesday, but GivingTuesday more specifically, because it's kind of a global day of giving. There's a lot of conversations that revolve around this, and it's an opportunity for you to generate more word of mouth because it's similar to how today on election day, people are posting photos and sharing with their friends. Hey, you should go out and vote. I voted. Here's my sticker. I voted. It's a day where there's kind of a natural conversation around a specific topic. Today, that's midterm elections. On GivingTuesday, it's about this global day of giving. How do I express my generosity? And so it's a great opportunity for you to tap into the relationships your supporters have to likely encourage others to consider supporting your organization as well. So when we're looking at this, there's 3 elements that an individual can give to you. And we're really going to focus on this idea of influence. And before we talk about influence or word of mouth, one of the misconceptions that, again, I thought and didn't really realize until I read Jonah's book, Contagious. He's a Wharton Business School professor, that he revealed that only 7% of word of mouth happens online. most word of mouth is actually offline, face-to-face interactions around the dinner table, the water cooler, or while watching sports. And when I think about my day and how many times I refer to a brand or I talk about something I'm doing or talk about something I bought this weekend, it usually does happen offline. Just we're able to measure online sharing much easier nowadays. And so that tends to get a lot of attention. And so when you're thinking about word of mouth or, oh, our audience isn't really on social media or is not really engaged in that, there's still an opportunity for you to tap into word of mouth because they still communicate and share in other ways about what they're doing and what they're supporting and why they're supporting it. And so it's still an important way to boost your campaigns. And one way to do this effectively, especially because you have the opportunity to use CosVox's fundraising platform, is to use peer-to-peer fundraising. And so what this does is gives your supporters the opportunities to create their own personal fundraising page on behalf of your organization, which is almost like an online review or referral that they're going to then be able to share out with their friends, family, and community. And that could be through email, that could be offline, that could be through social media. But this is a great option, especially if you have a group of individuals that are heavily involved and active in your organization. This is another way that you can tap into the value of that supporter by encouraging them to invite others to share about your organization. And you can use CosVox to be able to kind of facilitate this, which still gives you the ability to see and have visibility into all of that that's going on, who donated, who those donors were, while also kind of empowering your supporters to go out and do this. Last area we're going to touch on is social media. So obviously GivingTuesday is kind of sometimes pinned as a social media campaign. So there's a lot of noise on social media. And so we're going to talk about some best practices on how you can leverage social media in maybe a different way, especially around GivingTuesday, that helps you kind of circumvent some of the noise. You as an organization, if you have been doing social media or even if you haven't, have probably been seeing a decrease engagement. So this is on Facebook specifically, but it's drastic to see how much or how significant the decrease has been of engagement with brands directly on social media. So if I'm sharing out from CosVox an opportunity of a webinar training that's coming up next week, the engagement I'm seeing on that is much lower than it was previously. However, the different side of the story is that there's an increased engagement in posts sent out by individuals, or especially individuals that are in our community or kind of personal moats within the moat that we've created around ourselves online. And so we're more likely to be engaging with those and see those more frequently and more often. And so one of the ways that we encourage individuals to use social media on GivingTuesday is not necessarily to focus on what you as an organization can share out so that people take action, like in this case with the painted turtle, but rather focus on how you can equip or encourage your community or your audience to actually share about your organization through their personal pages or their personal networks. So this could be in the form of you sending an email and asking them to click a link that's going to help them share easily on social media, like a video or a story that you posted. Or if they go and read a story or read an appeal that maybe you have on your dedicated fundraising site, whether you're using CosVox or not, but if you're using CosVox and we encourage them to share it after they read the story and after they make a donation, which is then tapping into their personal network rather than them just that's tapping into their personal social network, which is where we see the most value in social media, rather than you trying as an organization trying to use social media to drive direct transactions. So social media is really a great tool to be utilized if you're encouraging your supporters or your audience to use their social networks rather than focusing extensive time on what your kind of outreach is going to be on social media or your promotion that you're going to do through social media. However, as you think about how you're going to use your organization's social media channels, it's again good to think about how can we make this post or design this post in a way that we are going to encourage people to share it. So again, using the personal network rather than our own. And so that's the real value. It's not just us sending it out and getting a response, but rather us sending it out and others sharing it and then getting a response. Because you're looking for more of that referral engagement or sharing engagement rather than just direct clicks and responses. Another reason why video is so valuable, because the consumption of video continues to go up on social media sites and just online in general. So if you have a video that you're able to share out and then others are able to share on, you're likely to be able to communicate that message that you're trying to accomplish more effectively through the use of video. But you can also use photos, showcase the why, GivingTuesday hashtag, some of these other basics here as well. Again, key here is equip your supporters to share instead of promoting yourself. A few other opportunities that I just want to touch on here that we've seen drive success as over the past few years. One is events. And so this might not work for every organization, but any organizations that are kind of community-based or have a headquarters or some way engaged in a specific community, you can actually combine your online campaign with an offline event. And so we've seen this work well, both in the form of just having an open house at your offices where you're inviting your supporters in to see firsthand your work or meet the staff, or maybe to be a part of some sort of presentation. And so again, creating a physical experience that then is going to invite people to share online or share digitally about your organization is a great way to build up or boost momentum. The second one, if you don't necessarily have a physical location or physical offices, is we've seen organizations partner with local businesses and host a meetup to be able to bring donors in. So again, this typically is localized. However, if you were a national organization and had multiple locations, you could still facilitate the same type of opportunity where you're bringing together the physical connectivity and again, giving individuals the opportunity to experience something that then they're going to share about online as well. And so last year we had a community services organization in a small town partner with a coffee shop and actually invite their volunteers to come in and stop in throughout the day. They had about 200 volunteers and take photos, and they were Facebook live streaming the event the entire day and raising money and engaging people and starting a conversation around the work that they were doing. And again, showcasing that together we're accomplishing a variety of different things. The last thing is partnerships. This is a great opportunity for you to tap in, whether you have business partnerships or you collaborate with other nonprofits. We've had a few organizations come to us already this year and talk about how they are bringing together a variety of organizations in their community for the sake of promotion. So they're still inviting people to support their organization's cause, but because there's a localized emphasis on GivingTuesday to support organizations and causes in your community that you care about, they felt like if they bonded together as organizations in a community, they could help amplify the promotion side of it while still giving the flexibility for individuals to support any of the participating organizations. And in some ways, that's why we're doing this boot camp. So we're partnering with the Rockefeller Foundation and our organization and your organizations in an attempt to help boost and showcase the work that you all are doing, but also give you that framework that you can use to engage your audience as well. Quick final thoughts on promotion. Essentials are super important. So what we talked about at the beginning, we're trying to do everything. And so we're still on a tight deadline. GivingTuesday is in 3 weeks. And so, or 4 weeks? 4 weeks. No, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And it's really important to kind of focus on making sure you have the essentials. So as simple as like having a goal, having a specific appeal, having your dedicated fundraising site. And even if it's writing a few emails and making sure you're engaging your audience in that way, that's going to still drive more success if you're doing that well, rather than trying to do everything. The other one is to keep it simple over strategic. So don't overthink GivingTuesday and how you're promoting that, but rather keep it simple, keep it fun. keep it focused on bringing people together to support your cause. And the last thing is together, which I've emphasized a lot. It's really about people coming together to express generosity. And so maintaining that in your promotion is going to be important. And so just as a final reminder, again, you're able to use CauseVox to build out your dedicated fundraising site. That's a part of this partnership program. And so please take advantage of time with Candace. And if you have any questions, again, about how to go about doing that, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we'll be able to discuss that with you or reach out after. So Candace is going to be reaching out to each of the organizations participating to give them the opportunity to be a part of that and participate in the onboarding process, where she'll work one-on-one with you to help you get a fundraising site set up like the Justice Movement has here for GivingTuesday. But outside of that, if anyone has any further questions about the previous training or today's conversation, feel free to go ahead and drop that in the questions pane. We're going to try to answer as many questions as possible, obviously, during our time together that we have left, which is about 10 minutes. And if we don't, then we'll follow up individually with each of your organizations. And like the organization that reached out after last week's training and wanted to have a more intentional dialogue around strategy for their campaign, you can do that as well. And so Candace is there to really help you with onboarding and getting your site set up and making sure you're leveraging that opportunity really well. But you can also reach out to us if you just want to have a detailed conversation around your strategy. I'd be happy to spend 30 minutes with you and kind of have that dialogue to really help you drive success this Giving Tuesday. So let's take a look at your questions. Some of those questions have already been coming in. So let me take a look. So someone says, how can our board members make their own campaign participant subpage on CauseVox? So as part of CauseVox's platform, you have the ability to allow people to create personal pages. Let me see if I can pull this one back up. So like Jenna Jones here created a page that was a sub-page of the Center for Community Solutions overall Giving Tuesday campaign. And so Jenna had her own website URL for her campaign. She had her own goal. But when individuals donated, they were actually still donating through Jenna's campaign to the Center for Community Solutions. And so on your campaign site, when you launch it, let's see if I can go. Let me go back here real quick just to show a visual example. Here, if you look at the Justice Movement, it says create a fundraising page as a part of their campaign effort. And so an individual can click that link and be able to set up that page as part of the campaign. You're also able to send out an invite link to your board members. And if it goes to the extent that you have your board members' email addresses and you want to set up their pages for them, you're able to do that as well. And then you can just send them the link. So they would have to create a login for their page with their own email address. That's what allows them to create a page. And so that's created through your campaign site. So that's not through CauseVox. So when you launch your campaign, they can actually create a fundraising page from your fundraising site with their email address. And so once they set up their page through their email address, they're able to then send that out via email or social media, or just use that URL to promote it out. Even something as simple as we use Slack here at CauseVox to communicate internally. And so it's good to have that URL because they could communicate, they could share that out with their colleagues or friends through any messaging app or even tool they use internally at work if they wanted to share that with a few people and invite them, or LinkedIn, all of those sites to be able to promote their campaign. Yeah, absolutely. If you have other questions about that or you get stuck, that's what Candace is there for. So Candace is really there to work to make sure that you're successful and you have all your questions and strategy side of using the tool to support your campaign. So please reach out to Candace, or Candace can reach out as well. Let me see if there's any other questions that came in. This conversation will be recorded, so you will be able to share this with any other team members that weren't able to attend today, or if you want to listen back to grab some of those best practices. Also send out a copy of the slides if that's easier for you to leverage, so you can look back at those best practices in the future. It doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in on the chat. However, if you do have questions and you didn't want to ask them today, you can feel free to email me directly at noah@cosvox.com. That's really focused on Giving Tuesday strategy. How do you design your campaign? How do you promote your campaign? How do you really kind of engage your audience in your campaign? I'll be happy to spend time talking to you all about that. Candace Cody on our team here at CosVox, she's really there if you need help getting set up with the CosVox platform and making sure everything's all set up for you to drive success using that tool. And if you have any questions in regards that are specific about the Rockefeller Foundation or kind of anything to do with the actual Bootcamp program, you can reach directly or out directly to Jeremy, who's on the Rockefeller Foundation team. He'd be happy to help and discuss anything further with you on that. And Sarah, who's also on the Rockefeller team, just wanted to remind us that the Rockefeller Foundation, the funds that Rockefeller is providing you as participating in this bootcamp isn't a matching gift. It's just a donation for your active work and participation in the program. But they said they'd be happy to go over that further with anyone who has questions, or even just talk through any language that you might want to use as part of your campaign around that gift. They'll be able to help you with that as well. So if there's no more questions today, I'm so grateful for your time. We will have one more training next week. And so next week's training is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be on Tuesday at 1 p.m. But the content of that campaign is to really use your actual campaigns or where you're at right now as examples to kind of discuss and talk through together. So it's more of kind of like a show and tell. We're really going to dig into that. I'm going to send out a few more or another communication in regards to that and ask for some input on those organizations that are designing their campaigns and would like to be a part of that showcase. We'd love to be able to show a CosVox example of how you're using CosVox to promote your campaign, talk through your fundraising appeal, maybe the ways that you're using goals to really drive engagement, and how you're going to promote your campaign. So we really want to talk through all of that, show as many examples as we can, but also kind of use that as another opportunity to answer questions and to give feedback on your specific efforts. So that'll be at 1 p.m. next Tuesday. Thanks everyone for your time today, and I'll be sending out the recording in just a little bit. And so if you have questions, feel free to reply to that. Outside of that, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.